Welcome to Rules of Villainy, where three new trading card game players quest and challenge their way to the competitive top tables and discuss their opinions on Disney's Lorcana. This is episode 24. This week, we'll discuss the latest news in Lorcana, answer your questions, and discuss the developing Azurite Sea meta. I'm Villain Vince, as always, joined by my two co-hosts, Villain Andy, and the mayor of Lorcana himself, Brad. How are we doing tonight, gentlemen?
Good news, everyone.
Yeah, what's the good news?
Got my Moana promo.
Ooh.
But bad news, everyone. I way overpaid for it.
Yikes.
I thought I was getting a deal on it because at the time it was only in the UK. We knew it was coming to the US. And then we looked into Missouri and none of them had the Cinemark theater. So I'm like, I'm just going to get on eBay while it's available. And yeah, it tanked in the process of me ordering it and it getting to me, and have some regrets, but at least I have it, right?
You got it. Yeah. I also think like it's a set 7 promo, right?
Yes.
So I think we're probably going to see that be pretty common. So folks out there, don't do what Brad did. Don't get the FOMO. Don't waste your money. But I'm glad you got it, as long as it makes you happy. We're all spending. Honestly, if you're listening to this, you're probably spending way too much money on cardboard anyway. Which, if you are, Andy, tell us a little bit about the TCG player thing we got going on.
We were able to get a partnership with TCGplayer.com. So we've got a link in the description down below that if you click on it and then you go do your normal shopping at TCG Player and buy all the singles that you would need to fill out your decks, then TCG Player will kindly give a percentage of their profits to us, the villains, which will help us bring more content to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And the great news is it doesn't cost you anything at all. You're just going to get the great cards out there, and you're going to help support the channel and our growth. And we appreciate you for doing that. So, well, let's get into, we got a lot to discuss because we had the EU World Championship. And so we'll get into Underworld news. And of course, hey, would you guess the first thing to talk about is the EU World Championship and the winner, Domingo Rodness? I'm definitely saying that incorrectly.
Rodenas?
That's probably closer. That's probably closer. I do apologize for that.
He's never going to come on the show now.
I know. Hopefully he does though. But it was just kind of a wild. I have not yet fully watched all of the content, because of the time difference. But one thing I will say is that quite impressive to make it through the LCQ to get into the event, then to take it all the way home at the end of the day. And seemed like it was a pretty great event. Brad, you seem to like the production, right?
Yeah, I happened to be awake when it kicked off Saturday morning at 2 a.m. US time or Central time, and I got the notification on my phone. Disney Lorcana has just gone live, and I'm like, oh god, what am I doing awake? So I decided to check it out, and Baker and I can't remember the other guy's name. I apologize. We're just going back and forth until it started. But the production, I hope they do the same thing in the US, because they were literally sitting in the Great Illuminary. The entire set design was immaculate. I loved it so much, and it's going to be so cool for everybody everybody who gets to sit there, hopefully in NA as well. They can't skimp out here, right?
No, I mean, it's the greatest country in the world.
Yeah. So anyway, but it was beautiful. I can't wait for everybody else who hasn't seen it to see it. And immediately took me like, okay, like they're putting dollars into this, production value into this, and yeah, that's my take on it. I watched one match.
Before I forget, they do have the VODs available for this. I'm pretty sure the Disney EU channel officially said, check it out. All the VODs are available. I don't think they split them up game by game, but you are able to go back and watch day 1 and day 2 and just scroll through them. So I know it's been harder in the past, but that's really also another great improvement.
Yeah, they just keep getting better and better and knocking it out of the park. And I'm excited to see the North American Championships here in less than a month now, right? Like we'll be in the thick of it a month from now for the North American World Championships. But we also got some pretty interesting news during the stream. The announcement of not one but two new sets. Set 7 Arcasia's Island. Arcasia's Island. See, thank you. It's Azurite Sea all over again for me. And then
you got it.
I did. And then set 8 Reign of Jafar. So I figure we'll kind of group these together and talk about it. But first, I just got to ask, Andy, what's your conspiracy theory here?
Should have been Hades. It should have been Hades.
Do you think it's like secretly Hades and they're just like, it's a fake out?
I don't know. I think
not at this point.
I think maybe like the Hades enthusiast at Ravensburger and the Jafar enthusiast were like both vying for the same, promotion. And like the Jafar guy or girl, whoever got the promotion, and like the Hades one lost out, and
well,
maybe they put the egg in the microwave and left, and now Hades is just on the cutting room floor, and it's really, really sad.
He's still plotting, I think. I got actually into a Facebook back and forth with Chip, one of our locals here at Grapes, where I was, being hopelessly devoted to the idea of Scar usurping Jafar, because it was very clearly the path to Jafar being the next big bad, right? But because Ursula was the first one and she had the first rule of villainy, and Scar came out and it turned out he had the second rule of villainy, I'm like, okay, I'm going to latch on to that. I'm going to latch on thematically that Scar, just took it from Mufasa. Why not take it out of the reins of Jafar's hands before he even had it, right? So I was arguing that, even though I knew in my mind, I'm like, it's not going to happen that way, but I can be hopeful that it would. But
who's the third rule of villainy? Do we have that?
I don't think we have that one yet.
No, but like fourth is Queen of Hearts.
The fourth is the Queen of Hearts. We don't have the third. We don't have the fifth, seventh, eighth.
They could still be doing villains in set champs in that order. So Ursula, Scar, whatever the third is.
Well,
Jafar
the third would probably be Jafar.
Yeah.
Looking likely.
Right? Because we have a villain now. We'll have a hero in set 6, and then so it's every even set will be a hero. Every odd set will be a no. I'm sorry, I've got that backwards. Right. So every odd set will be a hero. Every even set will be a villain, potentially. We don't know
potentially.
That for sure.
That's how it's been. Yeah,
we don't know that for sure, but that's been the order, right? So we've had set 3 Ink to the Inklings. We had Stitch, Ursula, then Mirabelle. That's right, Mirabelle, and now we have what is it, Brad? Scar.
It's Scar, baby. Well, sorry, everybody in St. Louis. I'm taking all the prizing.
Before we can even get to Jafar and his whole Hexwell crown that he appears to be wearing in that picture, we have to go through set 7, which is got Bolt from, I guess, Bolt. I don't think anyone saw that one coming. That was like way out of left field. But it appears to be some sort of pet island, animal island kind of theme to it. And it says we're learning new tricks or something along those lines, which hints at new mechanics. There's all kinds of crazy ideas being floated around there. Maybe like a pet mechanic where you can like sort of merge two people together, similar to Shift maybe, but they like just connect to each other and they get each other's bonuses, or I don't know.
We've got to be pretty close though to a lore cast, right? For the next set. I mean, assuming they're going to do that again, which I'd be kind of surprised if they don't.
I would imagine it would be between now and the Continentals if they do it, right?
Yeah, that would be, I think, the time frame. We're actually might be a little behind them doing the lore cast.
We are
in the like normal kind of. I mean, but the reason why I bring this up is because we generally see some of the new cards in the lore cast, and right now, aside from the Moana promo that you have in hand and the Iago promo, which is a set 8 card, I believe.
Yeah.
We have not seen any cards, right? Am I missing something? Like, I don't think we saw any cards from set 7 or set 8 besides those two. So, there's kind of a missing thing here, but I agree. I hope we see more pets. In particular, I really want the Aristocats. I want more cats. I want to make a cat deck.
What card do you want to see, Brad, from the Pets Island themed?
I'm so glad you asked, because I haven't told anybody this ever.
No,
I want Jock so badly from Lady and the Tramp, and also he had a cameo in Oliver and Company last night, which surprised the heck out of me. We have our Disney date night. Jock popped up, like, we got to get a picture because I want this card in this game so badly. Being an owner of a Scottish Terrier myself, and being advertised as like a pet haven, even on the broadcast when they announced it, which I wasn't unaware of at the time. I was like, pet, it's got to be all of these. Oliver and Company, Aristocats, Jock, Lady and the Tramp. Please bring them all in.
Shout out Oliver and Company. Very underrated movie.
It was good.
Billy Joel, right?
Yep, as Dodger.
Yeah,
Dodger.
that's right.
So
that's
good.
right. Yeah.
So
Bette Midler as Georgette.
Really, really, though, one. Everybody wants to be a cat as a song.
Yes.
That is like 100%.
Well,
one of the things I am.
What this game has done to me is when I'm watching movies like Oliver and Company for probably the first time, I don't remember seeing it before. I'm looking at things in the movie now and be like, that could be a Lorcana card, or that song could do this thing in Lorcana. And I'm just looking at Disney movies a different way now because I'm just so enamored with this game, and it's great.
So Ravensburger freebie here. You say everybody wants to be a cat. I think they've already hinted at this a little bit. They have a card that says like all of your opponents, choose a character and all the characters with the same name like get exerted or go back to the hand. Alice, right? And they have all these things that are around this sort of tribal theme. But I've seen cards in other trading card games that basically say all of your characters are now considered cats, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, again, with the Pet Island, cat and puppy or more animal themed, like, what are they, characteristics, I guess they were called. And we could definitely see that become a card. So all of your characters are considered cats until the end of turn.
Yeah.
And cats can't quest or something. Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about it. And I do think we saw some of the accessories, right, for set 6. Not set 6, I'm sorry, set 7. Yep. We saw the playmats.
We did.
And which were there was the
immediately forgotten by me.
Me too, actually. I remember the sleeves.
Immediately forgotten by me. One of them is the
Tigger. One's Tigger.
The other one's the song from this set. It's the
We Could Be Heroes or Immortals.
Yeah, We Could Be Immortals. The
Big Hero 6 song.
The Big Hero 6 song. Yep.
Okay.
I'm really excited for the Cindy sleeves for Steel Song decks.
Yeah, little Cindy sleeves. And then what were the other sleeves?
The Enchanted Deceiver of All.
Ooh, yeah, those would be nice too for my green steel.
Yeah, and then I think somebody at PAX saw that potentially there are the how you have in the Illumineers quest the Ursula backs sleeves or like a kind of a variant of that a little bit.
Yeah,
and we don't know if that's going to be a product or if that was just.
I thought those were being given out at PAX, or
were they?
I think so. Yeah, I think.
Oh, they might. Yeah, maybe they were. I don't.
They definitely got seen at PAX, but I saw the same thing you saw, and I thought it said these are being given out here.
Oh.
Because I remember telling Kirsten, and she was like, "Let me check how much flights are. We can still make it. We can still make it for the last day, and they might still have some."
Yeah, it's actually really funny.
Cool.
I like really almost got convinced over Thanksgiving to go to PAX this year, and I was like, no, I shouldn't do it and stuff. But next year, definitely like to Gen Con again, as always, doing PAX. And probably, you know what? I don't know. I need like a second job to afford.
Yeah, you should do all the things, Vince.
You know where PAX is?
It's in Philadelphia.
Philadelphia, which means we
Philadelphia.
can get a cheesesteak. Let's go. Worth the trip.
Honestly, you would have probably just gone for the cheesecake. Cheesecake.
Yeah,
the cheesesteak.
Or both, honestly. Honestly, I would do both.
Cheesecake's gross.
I would do PAX West even just to go see my buddy in Seattle again.
Get out of here. Anyway, well, that's all for the Underworld news. And next up is Constituents Corner with the mayor.
Thank you, Vince. Our first question tonight comes from Patriofelis Heather from our Discord. I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. Which ink color combo? I'm sorry?
I said you'll hear about it.
Oh, for sure. After she 2-0'd me tonight, she's probably feeling good. Like, it's okay. I get it. I can have a mistake. She asked, which ink color combo has the most meta-relevant subdecks? This could also be phrased, which ink color combo has the most diversity within the meta? Also, long-time listener, first-time caller. Should have led with that. I'm sorry. What do you guys think?
I'll give it like a 6 out of 10. I think it was... Oh, not your delivery of the question. You meant
no.
Okay, my bad. Honestly, I really like Amber Steel. I think that one it might be the easy answer here, but I really like how you can go very fast essentially with it and leave the song package behind and just use the good quality Steel characters and Amber characters. Or you can go the traditional Steel song and then just have a bajillion good cards to sort of fit in those other slots.
Yeah, that was going to be my answer.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's my answer too. I think right now it is the only ink combination that has a significant amount of variations on how you can build the deck. While as other decks, you can obviously sub out like one card for another card, and you could kind of think about how you're going to build it, but you're not really building a whole new type of deck the way to how it can play. So there aren't a ton of ways to build the sub decks and other ones. I mean, we're maybe seeing it with like Ruby Amethyst in the burn variant, but even then, like, I still think we're probably not quite there with its subtype. And I don't know. I agree with both of you that it is really that deck.
Yeah, my other option, now that I'm thinking about just a little bit more, I immediately went to the same ones you guys did. But red, blue, I think, sapphire, ruby, you could go, the traditional route that's been dominant for the last couple sets. But the item, you can do some really fun things with the item. Andy played quite a bit of that with the queen last set, and now with Oswald in there, you go item heavy and do all kinds of fun things with that. So I think there's a place for that. I don't know how competitive it is. I haven't played Ruby Sapphire in so long.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think I would just say, like, I agree that your point that you can make the other variants, but I want to stress the meta relevant part of Heather's question.
Okay.
And I'm
the
just
not
for
meta relevant, Brad.
Yeah, not sure.
Well, not yet, maybe. But we saw that item deck do, the last set, one of the DLCs, right?
One of the DLCs, yeah. But I do think the more I think about it, like steel lists in general, because Sapphire Steel, I think, is one that is underrated in how many ways it can be built. It's generally built more towards the mid-range control type, but you have a lot of very fast, good cards in Smee, Calhoun, Tadashi, even some of the like warded Sapphire characters that are in Sapphire Amber. And then the same thing applies to, even Amethyst Steel, because really Steel offers you this ability to have control over the game with cards like Tinkerbell and the new Jim Hawkins, and its song removal package, but also it has the ability to play cards like Smee, Lawrence, Pluto, that are just really good value cards that can help you get to 20 faster than your opponent. So while I don't think we see Amethyst Steel and its sort of two variants and Sapphire Steel's two variants being as meta relevant as the two from Amber Steel, I do think they certainly get considered when you're playing one of those two lists. You kind of teeter on that line of how much of this control and or aggro do I want to throw in my list, and from a deck building standpoint, I love it. I think it makes it really, really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a few ways to build these kind of different decks that has potential. But again, like as I say, for meta relevant, I think right now we're looking at Amber Steel being the big standout.
Yep.
The arguably you could say, there's potential for like the a lose lord kind of discard variants in Emerald. But again, I think there's a lot of potential for a lot of variants of subtypes of all these decks, whether it be like what Andy has said with Amber Steel or a lot of Steel decks, or as Brad has said with Sapphire, Ruby. I just don't think like we have the cards in the card pool yet, or somebody that's well smarter than me has quite figured out how to build the deck to make those consistent. Because I'll just say, to Andy's point on the Sapphire Steel, the real problem I have with that deck right now is its consistent play and like how to build it to play consistently. And so, I've been trying some different cards in and out of it. I didn't play it tonight. I wanted to give my old standby Ruby Amethyst. I didn't want to let that deck think I disliked it anymore. It was getting sad, just sitting on my desk. So I wanted to play it. It did not go well. But yeah, you live and learn.
You're never gonna let that deck go. You never are.
He never should either. He never should.
I mean, that's fair, honestly.
I mean, again, I think we have just seen that it won the not only. I think what's most impressive about that deck, in particular in the EU World Champions, is not only that it won the World Champion, but that it made it through like the LCQ as well.
Yeah.
Like, so I mean, what a hell of a run!
You could have played a different deck in the LCQ for all we know. Technically, you don't have to play the same one.
That's true.
But, yeah,
I would. It's fair. I'd be kind of surprised if
I wouldn't change if I just went 5-0.
Hyper aggro. I played Amber Amethyst hyper aggro and just triple daisied them every.
You don't have to worry about anybody else in that LCQ who he's played being in the main event to know what he's playing, right? So,
but
probably. But.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair point to consider. But anyway, yeah.
All right. We'll wrap that one up. Thank you, Heather. The second question is from Low John from our Discord. He said, I feel like Azurite C's gameplay is faster, with every deck committing more board pressure than previous sets. What are your thoughts on the speed of the set 6 meta decks so far?
Gotta go fast.
I feel like at least in the last 2 sets, right? Daisy came out last set, or was that the set before?
Daisy came out in Shimmering Skies.
Okay, yeah. I feel like it's fast now, like Daisy was at the beginning of Shimmering Skies, and everybody adapted to it, and then Daisy became more of a tool in certain decks. A couple 2-ofs in Steel Song or something, and no longer. I mean, people still played the hyper aggro, but it was never top tier anymore unless they got favorable matchups the whole time. And it could be the case now too, right? Like I feel like purple emerald, amethyst emerald. I'm trying to get better about saying the gem names. is a very, very good deck, and people were already playing it before tonight or before this set. But maybe people will adapt to it like they did Daisy and find ways to slow it down. Maybe, I don't know. What do you guys think?
See, I think it's not that like Daisy is a card that makes decks faster, let's say in first gear, right? For a car analogy here. And same with a card like Lilo. Arguably Lilo is a much better card than Daisy. People learned really quickly that they don't want to be given their opponents cards, especially in the current meta where characters, again, it's faster, it's more board presence. But a card like Genie that enters the meta and doesn't necessarily replace, but fits in that slot of a card like Rabbit, you think to yourself, that Genie poses much more lore threat. So and you also look at last set, you have decks like Emerald Steel, which didn't win the game until you were already in the fetal position crying because you just couldn't do anything to play the game at all. And it's like, oh, look, I have one lore. Okay, cool. I guess I quest now. And even then it would be like 7 lore. It takes me 4 turns to win here or whatever. So we got a lot of really good cards that are, very playable in these different gears. In second gear, in third gear, with the Genie, Calhoun to gain more lore. And so I think I feel like Lorcana wants to be a board-based game. It wants you to be questing and challenging, and removal needs to exist, but the game doesn't want to be play a card, brawl a card, play a card, dragon a card, play one card. It doesn't want to be this sort of spell battle back and forth. Could be wrong. That's definitely an aspect of the game, but so I feel like this set definitely gave us a lot more tools to sort of prove that's doable. Get on the board, quest, challenge me if you want. I got a good character, or whatever it may be. You can't challenge me because I got Simba and they all just readied up.
That was really cool tonight. I'll tell you that.
Well, you didn't even realize though that it did the all characters.
All of the characters. I just readied the Smee and was like, oh, and Heather was like, you don't want to ready all of them? I'm like,
you thought it was one?
Yeah, it was. I was using the Raya effect from playing Red Yellow, where you ready a character when inking, right? So I was like, I'll do Smee so he doesn't die. He already 2 damage on him. But then I was like, oh goodness, this card is great. First time playing it, but that's a tangent. Vince, what do you think about the speed of the meta so far?
I just want to say it's real rich of the electric car driver over here using car gears to give an analogy of the meta as the person that drives an actual manual transmission vehicle in this car.
I grew up driving manual transmissions. I know all about them. Yeah. I can relate to the common folk.
Yeah, you got the concepts of how it all works out. But what I'll say is that I actually do think Lorcana has moved from the combustion engine shifting to the electric car, just hit the pedal and go. Things have gotten a lot faster in the game. And I think, without a doubt, maybe this is going to be somewhat of a controversial take, but I do think there's been some power creep in the game. Just kind of naturally and stuff. Like if you look at some cards, I guess it's hard to say, is it truly power creep if a card got power creep that just never saw meta play, but now gets meta play? Maybe not. But we are seeing like cards that are coming into the game that just make, when you look at comparisons, cards in the past, you're like, well, okay, well, this goes into the binder forever. And I'm going to always play, this card and stuff. Actually, Heather, the listener who just wrote the question beforehand, had showed me like kind of these 2 cards. And I don't want to steal thunder because she might ask a question next week about this particular thing, which I hope she does next week. But, just this idea that the game is moving faster, and I do think there is going to have to be some sort of a reaction to the game itself to maybe slow it down a little bit in order to be able to play some of those higher cost characters and get to them. Because, like, honestly, like some of these games I've been playing, like the out to get to, say, be prepared is a little bit harder when the game is moving a lot faster. Like, you know, a couple sets ago, you could play out to 7 ink and then recover. And I'm not saying you can't do that today. It is just harder to do that today in, you know, the new meta than it was even in set in Shimmering Skies, even in the last set. It was a lot easier to consistently maybe get to a be prepared or a Sisu shift, clear the board, reset, gain control. And like I said, not impossible to do that.
It's just when you have no cards in your hand.
Yeah.
Discard.
Yeah. Well, it's just less consistent, right? Like if you feel like you get to that be prepared and stuff, you know, you could reset the board. But honestly, like that only works when you've got enough of a buffer. Like, you know, if they're at like 14 ink, you know, 14 lore and stuff, it becomes harder to like reset the board and regain control to try to leverage that.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of back and forth, like you said, Vince, where we see like characters that there's been times where it feels like you can't play any characters and there's not a great play for an ink combination on a 2 or a 3 drop, and you're like kind of just, you know, I'll deal with this 2 drop. It's the best one we've got. And now I think we're shifting to a point where some of these cards we're at like, there's literally only 2 cards in the game that could possibly beat these. When you play these cards, the you know, even just like the Alice, you know, that exists. There's what, Under the Sea, B Prep, and Big Sisu. You know, you put these Alices down and they cannot be interacted with other than those. I guess double swords. I mean, the very limited. So I wonder if we'll see a bounce back to the other side here where, you know, the power creep, so to speak, is not just like a 6 cost B prep just to make it so that you can get to it faster, but like these other interesting tools. Like technically we have a 6 cost B prep. It's Big Sisu. If you shift it, right? That's so maybe we get a 5 cost, you know, that does something like banishes most of your opponent's characters, half of them or something.
I mean, it just goes to show you the game evolves so quickly. Like, I mean, just think about like 5 weeks ago, we were talking about banning Diablo and how like
y'all were. Where is he?
Where's that card?
Yeah, at least locally.
I've
played 3 or 4 different places and I have not seen Emerald Steel being played.
You know, so hard to say where it's going to look in the future, but right now it's certainly moving fast, and it seems like the game's only getting faster.
All right. Any last words in the corner here?
Nope, all good for me.
All right. If you'd like to, we'll wrap it up for Constituents Corner. If you'd like to have your questions answered by the villains in the future, be sure to comment on this video on YouTube, our socials, or join us on the Discord where you can comment in the Constituents Corner channel. And with that, I will pass it back to you, Vince.
Thanks, Brad. Andy, want to take us into the main segment?
Yeah, absolutely. We hinted about it. We talked about it, hinted at it earlier. The EU Continentals were this past weekend. I, unlike Brad, did not get to wake up at 2 a.m. and watch them all the way through, but I did take advantage of the VODs and look through them. I watched the finals. What a great matchup. The best of 5 was long, but was awesome, honestly. I won't. Should we spoil? Obviously, we spoiled it. Wait, we already spoiled it. It went to game 5.
Won,
yeah, so it went to game 5, so it's definitely worth watching. Vince talked about it earlier. Ruby Amethyst, huge showing. I think it was 4 of the top 8. Is that correct?
It's at least 2, if I looked at it correctly earlier.
Yeah. And I was gonna say they showed these really cool graphics of the like main cards in the deck, or interesting cards, I should say, in the deck, and a lot of them had some spicy additions to them.
I really liked the one drop Moana. There's no captains to make her challengeable, but it's just a quester that anybody can pretty much kamikaze into, or it's an additional trigger for Flynn if they're running the Flynn package. If they don't get the Sisu, it's just another threat to deal with before Sisu comes out, right?
I didn't see that one utilized. That's really interesting. Just
so I was gonna say in top 8 we had 2 ruby amethyst, 2 amber. I'm sorry, not amber. Steel amethyst, 1 amethyst emerald, and 1 ruby sapphire. So actually, like a pretty
that wasn't
diverse.
8, was it?
Yeah, it's weird. On
Six.
Inkdex, they have 6 listed for top 8.
They're missing
a
few of them.
So they're missing
They're
2.
missing a few.
Yeah.
There's a graphic floating around that shows them. I think there was 2 ruby sapphire, 2 amethyst, amethyst steel, 4 ruby amethyst. Maybe it was 3 ruby amethyst and an amethyst emerald. But yeah, the finals was ruby amethyst versus amethyst emerald, and with all of this amethyst in here, I think one of the big things the announcers kept highlighting it, and was really, really interesting to watch, were where they were calling these genie battles, where the new 4-cost genie would come down on turn 4, draw a card, evasive, and it would pose this 2-lore threat as well, to sort of get you ahead. And these different amethyst decks would have to sort of to deal with this. The most common being the Elsa on turn. You play your genie on turn 4. Your opponent plays their genie on turn 4, and then on your turn you play an Elsa on 5, exert their genie, and swing both your genie and Elsa into it to take theirs out. So they never get any value out of the genie. So
besides the draw,
right? Besides the replacing itself. So it's not too clean. One of the other spices that they had in there was the 5-drop bell, which
love that card.
Is really nice. You can essentially swing into a genie if you're on the draw. So they play their genie, you play your genie. They don't have the Elsa, which is the key part. They have to not have the Elsa, but they quest with their genie. You swing in with yours, and you can play the bell to move the damage from your genie to their genie, to heal yours and take theirs out. The crab into genie.
Play.
Yeah, the crab into genie was another one. I think we've seen 3 or 4 crabs in a lot of these lists for that very reason. But just sort of playing around, whoever gets the genie down first, was really, really interesting to see, and I think is a huge part of the current meta that we're in.
Yeah, but I mean, so Brad found that graphic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We're looking at the top 8 decks. 6 of them amethyst, which is, I think, for a long time we've been talking about what's the best color, amethyst, and I think if anything has come true, we're showing that it's true here. And honestly, like, not only have we long thought that amethyst has been the best color, I think it only has gotten better with pretty much every set that we've gotten. And it's represented really well with 6 of the top 8 decks. And of course, the 2 that don't are playing Ruby Sapphire, which is also just another great deck.
And they didn't make the final, so they were wrong. All right, Amethyst, Amethyst rules. Let's go.
I mean, we'll see. We'll see where the North America breakdown comes with, which we'll talk about more as we get closer to that event. But I just think it goes to show that, like, I will say, as you guys get prepared for set championships, if you're not playing Amethyst, you at least better be prepared for Amethyst and be prepared for the cards that come in Amethyst,
And be prepared doesn't exactly work into Amethyst anymore because they've already won by the time you get to be prepared. All right, as Vince already pointed
Can we
out.
say be prepared just a few more times because that's like 5 in 5 seconds.
I wasn't. It sounds like you weren't prepared to say be prepared there, Brad. You need to be more prepared when you're saying that.
You're right. You're right.
It's true though. I mean, there was in that game. Brad was watching that first game between Heather and I, and even if I top decked a be prepared, the game was. There's no way for me to win that game to come back from without just fully 100% controlling the board. And like, that's just not possible in the current.
And you were,
meta.
In your defense though, you were pretty bricked too from when I walked in. You had 2 rabbits, a big Sisu and 1 inkable little Sisu, and was just running into Brick City with the game state that you were in, but
that's true.
She was so far ahead too. Like it just hit the ground running with that deck, right? And that's what Andy talked about last week, and what we're going to continue to talk about. And this meta being as fast as it is that the draw power from purple, the bounce power from purple, and then just the ongoing adaptable threat from Emerald. That it's a deck like Ruby Amethyst. It can only ink 1 at a time. You're slowly getting to your control while they're just getting an early lead and hoping to take it away from you.
Yeah, and I just think we've talked a lot about it too, but the instant lore in the game has really like kind of ramped up to a whole new level. Granted, some of it's a little conditional, like Go Baymax, but then we've got the old staples like Goat, and we've got the new edition of the White Rose. So there's a lot of these kind of like play and get closer to victory point here, or almost so much to like I win. It's like I was watching that match between you, Brad, between you and Heather, where it's like you were saying, it's like, but just remember now when you damage it, it's like when Baymax quests, he'll be able to heal, and that could get you to the win. And Heather was able to kind of navigate that situation in a way that she was able to just kind of sneak it right out under your nose so that you couldn't win that game. It was like 19-20 lore, almost exactly, at the end of that game. But it just goes to show you how some of those mechanics, if you're not playing right, not seeing the board correctly, you could make a different choice in, say, set 5 that would get you that victory on the next turn. But instead, in this meta game, with these instant lore characters, basically you can, lose the game, right? Like, if you're thinking, okay, I'm going to look at this board, maybe I do damage here, maybe, for instance, like as a Ruby Amethyst player, there's a lot of times where maybe you might sacrifice your rabbit to get that card draw because you're looking for an out, right? Well, now you do that, and they've got a Baymax on board, or they've got a Go in hand, right? Now next turn, they get, well, Go works a little differently for opponents, But but you've got to be aware of these more complicated board states that you didn't necessarily have to be aware of in set 5. So I actually do think the game has gotten in some ways a little bit more challenging on the meta level, because there are certain things you've got to be aware of, focus on, and build around to understand the full complexity. Because you can look like you're going to win and then really quickly go from winning to lost. In this game.
We touched on it last week with Go being the villain of the week, and I wish that I had played twice against it the day before we talked about it instead of the day after. We recorded on Wednesday, and then I went to League on Thursday night. And I kid you not, the 2 times that I played the Amethyst Emerald decks with Cody and Britt, like, they were very close games. I ended up taking them both down with Blurple and 2-1 wins. But each one of those wins like came at the cost of sweating that end game closing go-go, because knowing that she could just come down and win the game, because I have no way of removing this damage, and I have to control this board in some way to take the damage, and that threat of her, like like you said, it's a new thing, and it comes with every set. There's new cards, we have to learn new things. But that threat of the White Rose now is the instant lore, and the go-go coming down with the extra ink is instant lore. If you know, and it was sweaty. It was so hard navigating those waters, knowing like, okay, here's what I should do, but now I have to. Even tonight with Heather, like, well, here's all I can do, and I have to pray you don't have instant lore in your hand. And of course, she top decked the White Rose in our last game for the win, but she was well in control anyway. You'd be proud of her, Andy. She's playing that 5-drop Goofy in Emerald. They give basically the Big Alice in Emerald. 3 lore, gives ward when questing.
That's not bad.
Incredible. And he did absolute work tonight. But it's just one of those things. You see the card played and you're like, oh, I have to adapt to that now, as you always have to. But it was a weird night that I felt so much better playing Steel Song than I did playing Blurple, which I've been playing for months now, right? But
yeah, well, but would you say the deck you were playing was truly Steel Song? Because it seemed a lot more character heavy than a traditional Steel Song would be.
Well, did
how
you
many
have a whole
songs
new
are you
world?
running in that?
I had a whole new world. It's
An Ariel.
in Ariel. It was basically, it was a lot more characters than probably desired. The song count would be 12, probably about 15. 4 storms,
okay.
4 strength.
All right.
Yeah.
4
storms, 4 strength, 4 whole new worlds, 3 Zeuses, and 1. It's basically Karsten's.
That's definitely a song. Maybe it just, I saw when I was looking, because you had quite a board developed in one of those games.
I had to adapt. It was one of those things in game 3 with Heather. I purposefully chose, because she was sniping songs with Ursula all night, and I'm like, this is so damn annoying. Like, I forgot how annoying that card was, because I haven't had that happen to me. In Blurple, I'm only running friends on the other side, so I have 4 of those in my deck, and rarely does Ursula ever hit it, because I'm aware that I'm playing green and I've inked it, knowing that I'll get draw later, or I just don't have it in my hand. But then when you play Steel Song into that, it's like, okay, after the first game, now I got to remember she has Ursula. One time she bounced Ursula. I played Ariel, got my whole new world for the hand refresh, forgetting she had Ursula in her hand, and I just lost that whole new world instantly. But the last game, I purposely was like, okay, now I have to do some thought wheels here on what to do to get around this. And I intentionally did like turn 1 Simba, and I love the return, or the Future King Simba, the steel 1-drop from set 1, to put Lilo immediately in my discard. It's incredible. So then turn 2, I can play Smee with and have Lilo in my discard and prepare for, on a future turn based on what the board state is and everything. But I purposely went all characters, and I was like, on turn 3, I'm not going to play Ariel and dig for a song to get sniped. I'm going to play maybe Lilo if I need to. I had a bunch of 1-drops. I had another Simba, and I cycled that in. Then on turn 4, I played Ursula and Smee, just making the board wide. And then when I played Ariel on 5, I can have Ursula sing the Zeus that I got from, and just clear her board. And I'm like, it was all ways of thinking that I never thought of before, to adapt to how fast her deck is and what she's been doing to me for 2 games. And I was honestly, and I don't ever pat myself on the back, but I was really proud of my 3rd game with her, because I'm like, this is crazy, because I plotted this in a way to find my way victorious here, more than I have ever plotted with Steel Song before. And so anyway, that's my little tangent about it.
You're getting good. That's the
I'm trying. I'm trying.
Here. I will say, it's like, I totally forgot about that Simba card. Like, you played that and then you discarded the Lilo, and I was like, wait, what just happened here? And I was like, read that card, and I was like, man, I totally forgot.
It's good synergy
about this card, and it's such great. Yeah, exactly. Great synergy with that card. One thing I kind of want to discuss and throw out here is like, why do you think Ruby Amethyst just won't go away? It got 1 good card in set 6 and stuff, and otherwise it's been pretty
Genie. What card are you?
consistent.
Okay, I'm just making
Genie,
sure that's on the
Genie
record.
is the one good card, basically, right?
Ma-
Yeah, we know, Brad. You thought Genie was going to be good. No one said it wasn't. It's not replacing Rabbit.
Debatable.
Rabbit's still great.
We'll talk about that maybe later.
Long live the Rabbit.
Um,
I think the Ruby Amethyst sort of the Ruby Amethyst versus Emerald Amethyst sort of debate. Emerald Amethyst goes a little faster, I think. I really feel like Ruby Amethyst struggles at turn 2. I personally am not a believer in the Flynn Sisu package. I think Flynn is a sort of a trap card that you play. It's easy to remove. It's easy to deal with. At most, it gets you 3 lore, but it costs you a lot of setup and dedication time. And I think what makes Ruby Amethyst so great is that it has all of the Amethyst tools, and then the Ruby really comes in the later game. We're seeing Medusa. The Tremaines now are getting a bigger impact.
which Andy hates the Tremaines. He hates
that Tremaine.
Tremaine.
I thought of you Monday.
Good card. I love that card.
Playing Ryan, one of our teammates, Ryan. Monday night by Blurple, and it was 2 really great matches. Ron was looking over and even commentated on how great the matchups were. Like they were just neck and neck, real big thought process and everything Monday night at game night. And Ryan, won the matchup. But that Tremaine, I forgot how good she is, because I don't play Ruby Amethyst into Ruby Amethyst much anymore. There's been so much change in the last couple sets. Not to say that Ruby Amethyst has not been good, but a lot of you switched off it a little bit, I think, and Andy's moved on to other things. So I haven't played against it so much. And that Tremaine came out, and I'm like, that is such a mean card. Such a mean card. I can't believe Andy hates this card so much.
I don't know what it really solves in the current meta, right? Like it could hit a Genie, right? Before we were talking, Tremaine, there was a better argument for Tremaine earlier when we had the dominance of Bucky and Prince John and things like that. But especially now with how much lower to the ground, how faster it is. If Steel Song is paying 6 of its 9 ink to just bring back 3 Lilos at the beginning of every single turn and saying, okay, deal with this from now until infinity, right? What is that really going to do for you? I think so.
Sure, it doesn't work in every situation, right? You found like the one unlikely scenario that occurred where maybe it doesn't work very well and stuff. Listen, I get it. You don't like the card. It's not your favorite. It's a good card.
I just feel like there aren't those characters. The amount of scenarios where there's going to be one character is significantly less now. It was higher when there were the Ruby Sapphire and the Sapphire Steel, and they were playing like Tamatoa or Ariel and things. Now everyone is playing more characters in general, as well as there isn't really a character that you have trouble dealing with that you need to get off the board, like a Prince John or a Bucky or a warded character like that. Maybe an Alice argument can be made for Alice, but
yeah, I don't know. I'll say that the problem is like it's a good control tool when you finally have gotten board control reestablished to prevent your opponent from really establishing a strong board, because it forces them to then have to commit more to the board than maybe they would want to commit to the board to try to keep a higher value card surviving if they get the option to. And like, quite frankly, like there have been some cards that aren't, now in the meta that aren't like is as useful for Medusa, right? We used to, I was like, okay, like this card, like, it's like if you see one of those flow charts is like, okay, card less than less than like 3 or less like a strength dies to Medusa, right? Or like, has ward then survives. But we've got a lot more cards in the meta that are either just above that or have ward. I
guess you're right. Gantu, all hail. Is in the meta to some extent, and Yeah,
I should have put him in my deck.
there's always those Tamatoas, Maui Shark, and I will say I do like its use as a one of. A lot of decks are running two of, but I like it as a utility where because you're playing Amethyst, the best color in the game, you can bounce it a bunch of times and play it over again. Turn 7 can be a be prepared, and I do think Tremaine's value goes up hugely after be prepared. So you be prepared on 7, whenever they play. The next turn you can Tremaine it. And
See ya.
at 8 ink, you can even Tremaine and then snake it back to your hand, to then threaten to then basically tell them you have to play 2 characters or else you lose it to Tremaine. But yeah, I guess the original question of why do we think Ruby Amethyst is so great? I don't know that it's the best, but it's just, there's these flavors of do you want to go faster with Amethyst? Do you want to control more with Amethyst? Do you want to go somewhere in the middle with Amethyst? I think you're kind of just wrong if you want to go more controlling and you use steel. I personally am in the Ruby camp on if you want to control, you got to go Ruby Amethyst. If you want to go fast, though, I think Ruby Amethyst does a worse job of that. The Flint, like I said, Flint CCU package are not great, but cards like Bonsai, Steel is honestly perhaps your best option for going fast, because you've got Smee and Lawrence and Pluto and Calhoun and some really good cards in there. Or
so are you sticking with Emerald Amethyst then? Last week you were here, best deck in the game.
Yeah, it's still really good. I've been testing Ruby Amethyst, but honestly, like I said, I can't get over the Flynn Sisu. I hate that the second turn in the game, I just kind of like look at my hand and I go, man, whatever I do this turn, I'm not going to be happy with it. And then like I think, well, what could I have gotten in my altar instead that would have made me happier? And I go, nothing. And I just it doesn't feel great. No.
Yeah.
What about Cusco? Bring back old set 2
Cusco's
Cusco.
the worst Diablo, right? You don't need it, and it costs more. And what it brings to the table of having 2 willpower and 1 strength it's not trading back with anything.
Yeah,
you're not
trying to.
It's
like,
not surviving, right? But
you get a draw out of it. They kill Flynn, you get nothing. Like
right.
They immediately let Flynn go. So
you're just paying 1. It's just a 1 cost more Diablo. So if you want 8 Diablos, then sure, but I don't think you need it.
Yeah.
The Diablos are there to prevent getting like stormed on turn 2 from like Steel Song or something like that. And so that's the other option. You really just want to get a recycle out of your 1 drop in any of these Amethyst lists, and then on 2 you want to play something ideally to threaten the board and make them do something like a Smee or a Calhoun or a Bonsai, even a Go-Go, an evasive threat, which actually makes me wonder if Ruby Daisy Duck has any possibility of being considered. It's a 2-cost inkable 2/2 evasive Ruby character. So it's a worse Go-Go, that's for sure. It doesn't have the Go-Go effect, but you could play that on 2, and if they don't have their own evasive threat, then it continues to just quest and quest. And if they do get down something like a Genie, you have the ability to crab that Daisy and send it in there. You're less attached to it than you would be a Go-Go, so you could definitely do that a lot easier. You can also still Elsa and throw that into it. It gets better with Peter Pan Shadowfinder. Then it becomes a
Rush, right?
Yeah, Rush. It will give Rush to the evasive, so it becomes a Queen of Hearts then, essentially. It's an option, but it's kind of vanilla.
I agree with you that I sort of agree that I don't love the Flynn Sisu package. particularly because I don't think it's super consistent in achieving its ultimate objective. With that being said, because there seems to be less, well, at least right now, it seems besides Ruby Sapphire and like the mirror, there is less like there's not a whole like a lot of Ruby being played. So there is maybe more likelihood that your your Flynn stays around, but still got a huge target on its back. And it's still probably going to die. And it doesn't have, I think the real problem is that that's a card that, I mean, obviously you want to give every card ward if you could, right? But that's a card you really want to have ward on,
Right.
In order to achieve its objective. I mean, it would be way overpowered if it had ward. I'm not suggesting that it should have that, but that's kind of the real problem with it, right? Is like you play it, the effect you want to get on it, you really can't get until turn 4? Like,
Yeah, I mean, you can get it turn 3 right after you've played him if there's no other. But you're right. There's going to be another 2 strength character most likely.
Yeah, so most likely. So you're looking turn 4 to get that Sisu down. Yeah. So, man, I
have an idea.
Sweet. All right. What's your idea, Brad?
This is just on the spot. And again, not a Ruby Amethyst player. But I was looking at 2 drops in Ruby Amethyst here and saw some ideas, but whatever. What I went to was, since either the winning deck or one of the top Ruby Amethyst decks had the Moana in it, probably just for the quest and the strength, and the Flynn trigger, what if your 2-drop instead of Flynn was the 1-drop Moana, 2-drop the Windy Darling, the new evasive Windy Darling, the quest for 2. Yeah, she's a 1/2. She makes it a 1/2, or makes it a 2/2, and she quests for 2, and she's evasive.
Still works with Crab, even if you don't have the captain in play, but it doesn't work with the Elsa if you don't have the captain in play, and you also have to replace one of your 1-drops.
It's not a captain; it's a pirate.
A pirate. Oh,
yeah. So a little bit better. A little bit better.
There's no other pirates that that are like in the list currently that would synergize with it. But
the only one I could think of was the 1-drop Moana. And so you got your 1/2, and then assuming Moana quests and survives, then you got I don't even know if you quest Moana.
The problem is uninkability.
She's a 2-cost uninkable. Yeah,
you'd absolutely start to run the risk of really bricking your hand.
To what Vince was saying, though, with Ruby Amethyst, I think part of the problem with that, with the Flynn Sisu package by turn 4, is you look at, turn 1, you do whatever. Maybe we were both playing an Amethyst 1-drop that we're either going to throw away or quest forever with and try and draw a card off of. And then play the Flynn down. Steel or Emerald with Amethyst is just going to play a card to deny that. Essentially, any of their 2-drops will deny that. Smee, Bonsai, Calhoun, and then you're going to play the Sisu with Ruby Amethyst, and then it's going to come back over. They're going to play, again, anything they want. They might you might get 3 lore there, but you're stuck being unable to exert your Flynn or your Sisu, because as soon as you do, these characters that they have are going to trade back into it and break up your combo. And then you're no longer getting those 3 lore. And so in the meantime, so you either say, and when I was testing with Kirsten in this, what would end up happening is she would either make the decision, okay, well, I'm just not going to turn them sideways so that I continue to get my 3 lore. Well, then I'm turning all of mine sideways to gain lore. Then eventually I get to turn 5 and I play Elsa and I exert the Flynn and I take the Flynn out. And now you've gotten maybe 3 or 6 lore, but your Sisu has just been sitting there doing nothing. And I've been questing the whole time, keeping up, and it becomes really frustrating. You have to sort of sit around, or you fight back, and I go, okay, that's fine. And then I fight back, and your combo's broken up, and my cards were essentially more valuable than yours. Sisu is still a really good card. I would even consider playing it without the Flynn in that spot if there was like a better 2-drop or something. But even the Flynn Sisu is just rough.
But ultimately, this is why that Flynn is a frenemy, right? It's neither your ally nor your enemy. It kind of works when it works. But any last thoughts
on all of the meta?
I mean, we got a lot to
we could talk about the meta for hours and hours on this. I wanted to talk to Brad about why Blurple isn't considered.
We're gonna have to wait till next week.
Man,
Blurple.
Find out next week why Blurple is the best deck in Disney Lorcana. That's their stamp of approval.
It's a lot of fun.
Honestly, I'm telling you, I'm a little sad to not see it do very well in the EU Championship. Here's a prediction right now. You think it'll make it in the top 32 in North America?
You mean 16, right?
Top 16. Top 16.
The day 2 is a top 16 cut, right? Yeah.
Listen, I'm a hopeful person, but it depends on matchups. Like,
I mean, it's humble or bust, right?
Yeah, is Humble in it? I don't even know if Humble's in it.
I don't know. Would he be the only one crazy enough to take that?
It has tools.
Brad in the LCQ.
It has tools to be successful. It's really dependent on matchups, and without going too deep into it, like it doesn't have, like, if you go wide on it, it just doesn't have the tools to keep up with it. It's
either does Emerald Amethyst. Neither does.
Yeah, but you're questing a lot faster at the beginning. That's a whole conversation. We'll talk about Blurple next week for sure.
We'll talk about it next week. But now, the villain of the week.
Is it me?
You said you were going to read it, and now I'm like, you left me hanging there. What? I needed to.
I thought you were going to introduce it.
Now to you, Brad.
Take it away, Brad. Okay. No, villain of the week. Apologies to Gantu. This villain is a set 6 Azurite C card. It is the Genie, Wish Fulfilled, a 4-cost rare uninkable in Amethyst, and should be of no surprise. We've been talking about him the whole podcast. 2 strength, 4 willpower, quest for 2 lore. He's a Storyborn ally with evasive. His ability is What Comes Next. You've been free. Spontaneous Hamilton. When you play this character, draw a card. Flavor text is, "Oh, does that feel good?" Art by Veronica Di Lorenzo and Vivio Cacciatore. If that sounds familiar to you, I read this card about 8 weeks ago in episode 16, and Vince and Andy weren't too thrilled about the card in general. In fact, Andy at one time, and I quote, said he'd rather have the 3-drop Maleficent Sorceress instead. How does it look today? Would you still like that, the Maleficent Sorceress, or is Genie kind of dominating the meta right now?
It's a pretty good
I don't know.
It's a pretty good card.
I just wanted to give the guys grief.
Sorceress. I think she's underrated.
Yeah, she's set 1 goddess.
Listen, this card, it's fine. This card's fine.
This card is great. It's single-handedly, I feel like Diablo is gone because of it.
Diablo's gone because it was all hype around Diablo in the first place. He was never a problem.
Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree with that. It's the entire deck that's the problem. But with more evasive answers, like Diablo, just he does a little bit of damage, then Elsa and Genie come out and just take care of it.
We have certainly gotten into more evasive meta. I will agree with that, but that is not the reason why we don't see Diablo. I don't think we see Diablo because that deck is just not equipped to keep up with the current meta.
Just even like the LCC, for any example, Zan, the king, arguably the king of that deck, added 1 single card to it, and it was the Pluto bodyguard. Yeah, so I don't disagree with anything you're saying.
I mean, in fairness to Zan, they did that before. I think the set
the day the set came out.
Yeah, so
yeah.
I'm sure Zan would have come up with something maybe even a little bit better with that deck, or probably played a different deck. But anyway. I mean, this card's good. It's obviously is certainly shifting the meta, and pretty much every Amethyst deck is playing this card. At least 3 of them or 4 So it's definitely a card that we're seeing in a lot of decks out there. What I'll say to like kind of help Andy out here a little bit from his original statement here is that I think this card is certainly a problem. It's a very good card. If you go look on TCG Player, I'm pretty sure I think the prices are pretty insane for a rare card.
Rare card.
But again, I think some of that is due to obviously what we've seen it do in the EU Continentals. And also the fact that it's played in a lot of Amethyst decks. So it's one of those staple cards you find in a lot of your Amethyst decks. So everybody wants this if they're playing any Amethyst deck.
That was my query to you guys back in episode 16 was that like in a way at the time that I last week when I wanted to talk about it a little bit more was that it effectively replaced Rabbit in most decks. A lot of decks were playing 4 Genies, maybe a Rabbit or 2. It's kind of balanced back out if you look at the European Continentals, where it's pretty much split. And I think that was my initial question to you guys was like, do you split it with Rabbit? The 4 slot is, Rabbit is the best card in the game. You get you always get 2 draw from it. This one you only get 1. But with how fast everything is right now, that Genie comes out and he's off to the races if he's not Medusa'd, if he's not brawled, and then we have tools in my deck to ward him. And in Heather's deck, she was warding it with Gazelle.
Yeah.
Or not Gazelle.
No.
Goofy.
Well,
yeah, so like
Goofy, but also Gazelle as well. I think
Gazelle gives it evasive, and he's already evasive.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But yeah, he's single-handedly taken, Rabbit's spot right now, in most cases, and contributing to the speed of the game, and he's hard to deal with. We talked about ways to deal with him earlier in the podcast, so I'm not going to harp on that too much. But you touched on the TCG and everything. Like everybody wants this card right now because he's of how much he's doing.
Yeah,
you bring up a good point though. Gazelle. So you have a Gazelle on board. So you play the Merfolk on 1, you Gazelle on 2 to save your Merfolk. Then later turn you can play Fox to bounce the Gazelle and then give the Fox evasive by playing the Gazelle again and take out a Genie. It's another way to get rid of a Genie.
There you go.
Yeah, that's actually a good.
These 5 tips that Genie players, your Genie opponents hate.
Yeah. Patreon exclusive.
One day
I still think Rabbit is a better card, and it is still one of those cards that will ultimately, I think, largely be a staple. The reason why I think this card is seeing more play than we necessarily expected a few weeks ago is just because of how important evasive has become in the game, and it's another evasive utility card that you have that gives you a great enter the battle effect. So it gives you this great ETB effect of gaining a card off the draw, when you play it. But I still really enjoy the, the Rabbit play line and stuff, because it's like Rabbit, this one you want to stay on the board because you want it to quest or you want it to trade into other evasive characters on the board. Whereas, Rabbit, it's like I can play it, get my card, sing friends on the other side, gain 2 cards. Sure, go ahead and take it out if you want. I gain a card, or next turn I'm playing, Goat, or not Goat, because you don't bounce a character, Fox or Snake.
Right.
And I'm drawing another card
Elephant.
and playing it. Well, Elephant doesn't see any play.
Dragon.
But so Rabbit is a card engine tool. Genie is a card draw tool, right? So it's you playing it, you're getting a card value. You could, I guess, theoretically bounce this back and replay it, so there is some more draw to it, but I just don't know that that's the play line you want. Like that's probably not the optimal play line.
Rabbit is
and it works.
Rabbit is definitely more of a draw engine than Genie. But Genie is also much more of a threat. And I think you bring up a good point about how Genie you basically made it seem like Genie is needed in the meta to answer the evasive threats that exist in the meta, but really, Genie is the evasive threat that exists in the meta. So Genie is needed to answer the Genie. Like it kind of it's such a good card in its of itself that it demands this. You know, if you think about the decks that existed last set, if you were a time traveler and you had this card and you showed up at a DLC Seattle and you were playing this card, every deck that you played against would just be like, well, this is really hard to deal with, right? I have no board-based way to remove this. I only have Brawl or like Zeus or like multiple steel spells and stuff. And so it's like
you have Medusa. I mean, you've got
right.
Remain.
It's just a much bigger threat than something like a rabbit, as far as lore wise goes. And I think the difference between the number of rabbits and genies we have just has to do with sort of where you want to put your deck list on this sort of spectrum of aggro to control. You know, if you're playing a longer game, a rabbit is much better because, like Vince said, it's an engine that you can reuse much more efficiently. But if you are trying to keep up in a faster game or play your own faster game, Genie is a much better card for that. And I think Genie tends to fit in the middle really, really well. So it ends up being in a lot of the lists, no matter where you're trying to go. It has good value in all realms.
Because it kind of I'm a great kind of question, right? It's like, okay, I need an evasive card. Check. I need a card draw. Check. I need a character that quests for more than one lore. Check. You know, and stuff. And like I said, you know, yeah, and it's hard to remove. And it's not that you couldn't. You know, I said it's like you want to use like Rabbit to say sing friends with the other side. Obviously, you could do friends with this card, but here this is like, you know, to Andy's point, you want to play fast. You don't want to use this to sing friends on the other side. You want to use this to get your, you know, lore objective and maybe use a different card or just hard cast friends on the other side, or use other card utilities to do this. I mean, particularly in Ruby Amethyst, we see decks play both of these cards, both Rabbit and Genie. But I do think in a lot of Amethyst decks, we are seeing Genie being favored over Rabbit, and I'm wonder if we'll see as the meta develops further that we'll see more splits between the two cards, and I would suspect we will. I could totally be wrong about that, as you know. Brad likes to point out we've been wrong about how good this card was.
I'm just
I will not say that. I did say that the library was going to be a good card in the game too.
Yeah, you did.
You also said it was your turn to get all the enchanteds this set as well. How's that working out for you, Vids?
Well, actually, not so bad anymore because I got one. I got the Tiana.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Which is, I think, one of the better cards, better enchanteds in this.
It is the most valuable, I believe, probably because Tiana has the most fans. I guess it's like a princess or whatever. But
I thought about slotting her into my Steel Song tonight just because I liked the card and thought it would be fun, but I didn't want to. Yeah. Back to Genie real quick. I wanted to just comment on, as somebody who's been avidly using it in Blurple, that I feel like the bounce doesn't feel as bad with him. Like the replay, because of all the extra resources. Assuming that I hit my ramp, it's not so bad in that deck specifically to we're a little bit further beyond where I was going to say it before, so I lost some of the train of thought. But I have found with Blurple and the extended Inkwell that it's not so bad to get him out there, quest him, and then do it again in certain situations where it's needed, depending on the matchup as well.
Only one less card.
No, I also think like that makes a lot of sense in that deck. I think it's harder to make an argument in, say, the Emerald Amethyst deck, which, you know, to try to bounce it to replay it and stuff. It's like, at least, when I was watching Heather play it, I was like, that deck really wants to be hitting cards on curve to play down. It doesn't have the resources to spare to really bounce to play again efficiently. I would even argue like a Ruby Amethyst, you could probably do it because you do it with the rabbit. But again, like really, if you want that effect, you'd rather probably have rabbit so you can draw another card on its when you're removing it and then replaying it. But I agree. I don't think it's a bad strategy, but I definitely think you're right in that Blurple deck. You because of the Sapphire ramp, you've got plenty of resources that you don't. That extra card value that you get from Rabbit, from just how much better this card is to play, to like have a threat on board, outweighs its additional card draw that you may rather have in other resource limited decks.
Yeah, I just was reminded of a mistake that I made against Heather tonight, I think in game 2, where she had her Genie exerted and had 2 damage on it. And I gambled. Instead of playing the Elsa that I had in hand to finish it, I decided to play Sail the Azurite Sea to get another card to ink. I forget the whole rotation, but I gambled on getting an inkable card off my top deck, and I didn't. So then I couldn't play the Elsa. And then she bounced that Genie, and I was like, that was basically game right there, because now she's taking board control. She's already got Belle on board, who she can also bounce and heal the damage that was across the board. And now
you got in front of you.
Yeah,
free ones.
And so she got that Genie back and then just took total control. And and it's just another example of the threat. I was wanting to get rid of him because I knew the stakes of him being evasive. And there was one time I Hades'd her Genie just because I knew that it was evasive and it might be harder to deal with later. I'd have to hit it twice with my Elsa or whatever other options I had. When she had the big Clarabelle, she had something else, and she had Genie, and I'm like, I'm gonna do the Hades or do the Genie because he's such a pain. But yeah.
Well, let us know your thoughts on this week's Villain of the Week. And you'll notice we're not going to do the Galactic Council this week, but that segment is not dead. We are just revamping our thoughts behind it for future content. But for now, we're going to leave it at that. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you're joining us on audio, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. We may just read your reviews in our next episode. If you're joining us on YouTube, please be sure to give us a like and subscribe. It sure helps the YouTube algorithm. And also be sure to hit that bell icon like Quasimodo to be notified of our next episode. You can help continue plotting our devious plans on social media or on Instagram, Blue Sky, and the platform formerly known as Twitter @Rules of Villainy. Please join us on our Discord as well with the link down below. Until next week, stay safe, fellow villains. Be wary of wannabe heroes who want to disrupt your villainous plans. And as always, remember the rules of villainy.